Hey, it's Bilal, and this is Deep Sea, the podcast about seeing the world more deeply. It's week 4.5 of self-isolation for me, and each day seems to blur into the other. I remember at the start of the fears around COVID, we all got very concerned about our food supplies, so we did stock up on canned tuna and pasta. And more recently, we did buy some hens, so we have more eggs than ever before. But all of this has just reminded me of how we can't even take the basics like food for granted. So during this lockdown period, I've actually started to cook. Before COVID, the limit of my cooking was pasta and boiled eggs, so anything that just required boiling. Alternatively, it was microwaving ready-made meals, or more likely ordering in or going out to grab some takeaway food. But since our surplus of eggs, I've now started to become much more adventurous. I've even ventured towards frying eggs, making omelettes, and making scrambled eggs. In a strange way, this has actually given me the confidence to venture further afield. So, each day now, I've been preparing the family meal. All I do is I pick a country's cuisine, Google a simple recipe. I find the British chef Jamie Oliver's recipes quite good. He's very casual in his language. He uses terms like a dollop of oil, which makes the whole process feel a lot more casual and easier for a novice like me. After picking the recipe, it's then a question of hunting for the ingredients. Often we do have the basic herbs, seasonings, and oils, but we're missing some of the fresh vegetables. So then the ritual starts of going out to the supermarkets and trying to find the ingredients. And in these times, some of the ingredients aren't always there, so you have to improvise, which makes the hunt a lot more fun. In terms of meals so far, the first meal I cooked was a steak, so I thought I'd go for a classic. Then I went for an Indian chicken butter curry, where I learnt that it's good to look at the recipe at the start of the day, not just before the meal, because you need to marinate the meat for a few hours. That's an important lesson to learn. Next day, it was roast chicken, and then yesterday it was Korean bulgogi, which is Korean barbecue beef, which was surprisingly easy to make. Today, the plan is to make Lebanese shish taouk. So all of these dishes are actually not that difficult to make. The key thing is knowing when to marinate, or how much time you need to marinate the meat, having the confidence to know when the meat is cooked, and also not burning the onions when you're cooking curries. And I've also realized that there seems to be some core ingredients that will make anything taste good. So it seems like onions, garlic, and salt, to me, at least in my novice stage, seem to be critical ingredients. And because of my subcontinental Asian heritage, chili powder can't go amiss either. Now, the other benefit of cooking is that it does introduce some structure and a nice distraction for the day. So while before I could just be thinking about work and markets, now I can start to allow my mind to be distracted by what I'm going to cook in the evening. It also introduces breaks during the day. So you need to set aside some time to go shopping for the ingredients. You need to set aside time to prepare the meat. You need to set aside the time to do the actual preparation and the cooking itself. And then there's the fun of consuming the meal itself with the family. So that's a nice communal experience. There are some downsides though. I don't particularly like the cleaning up of everything afterwards. But someone did tell me it's best to clean while you're cooking, and that does reduce the burden. At a deeper level, there are other benefits of cooking too. One, it makes you much more attuned to nature and knowing which ingredients are in season and out of season. There's also something quite comforting about knowing that you can make your own meal rather than relying on ready-made meals. And at a crude level, it's actually cheaper to prepare your own food, getting takeout all of the time. Naturally, given my researchy background, I also have been doing some research into the more deeper, significant meanings of cooking and ingredients. I discovered the Japanese scholar of arts who was around in the 19th century and early 20th century, a chap called Okakuru Tenshin, and he wrote this famous book on tea. And in there he talked about the subtle charm in the taste of tea, which makes it irresistible and capable of idealization. It has not the arrogance of wine, the self-consciousness of coffee, nor the simpering innocence of cocoa. I love the way he talks about a drink in such a personal way. And then, of course, in religion and spiritual traditions, there's a big emphasis on food, what you can and can't eat. But also, in many traditions, there is also a lot of emphasis on the process of cooking. Perhaps Zen Buddhism is one that emphasizes it a lot. Zen Buddhism tends to be one tradition that likes to recognize the mundane day-to-day stuff that you do and map it onto the spiritual. In fact, in Zen monasteries, every member is assigned a task to look after the monastery. Novices are actually given the lighter tasks, while the more advanced monks are given the more menial tasks, which often can be in the kitchen. And this ends up meaning that these Zen monks end up bringing their deepest attention to seemingly mundane tasks like chopping, preparing, and cooking in the kitchen. So the kitchen work suddenly becomes spiritualized. Now that I'm getting into cooking, I've also noticed food and ingredients in poems. One of my favorite poets is Pablo Neruda, perhaps one of the best poets of the 20th century. He was a Chilean poet, diplomat. He actually wrote a poem about onions. I won't read out the whole poem. Here's an excerpt. You make us cry without hurting us. I praised everything that exists. But to me, onion, you are more beautiful than a bird. Of dazzling feathers, heavenly globe, platinum goblet, unmoving dance of the snowy anemone, and the fragrance of the earth lives in your crystalline nature. So who'd have thought that one of the greatest poets of the modern era would have an ode to the humble onion? Thanks for listening. Please tell a friend about the podcast. Leave a rating on iTunes, Spotify, Overcast, or wherever you go for your podcast. You can follow me on Twitter. My handle is @BilalHafiz123. You can also follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or my personal blog, BilalHafiz.com. For my research work, you can go to macrohive.com. I'll be back soon, so tune in then.